Welcome to Crosslink Community Church Podcast, where we prize Jesus, make disciples, and love people well. We are so glad you're here, and wherever you're listening from, we believe you will be more acquainted with the heartbeat of God through today's message.
Man, I'd like to start off by first saying thank you. Thank you to everyone who played a part in Friday. If you were not able to make it, Friday was insane. It was. Listen, so first we'll start this way. For all of you who donated, gave money to make it happen, and then those who put the church together throughout the week to have it ready, y'all did an amazing job. It was beautiful. All the tables were set up. We were ready for the crowd, and I kid you not, I looked at my watch at 6:18. All right, it started at 6. At 6:18. I got a couple guys, and we had to set tables up on stage. Like, it was, I felt terrible for the cooks and for the people in the parking lot. I don't even know where they put the cars, all right? We were slammed, but it was an amazing time. It's one of those events that we get to do that invites our community here so that we can love on them well, so we can feed them, so we can encourage them, and so they can be loved. And so we did that. So thank you. I want to, Nicole, I don't know if she's here today. Okay, I was going to go ahead. Yeah, like her and her team, you guys did an amazing job. So now our next big thing will be Christmas Eve service. It's coming up. You're 14 days away. Ready for that? Don't worry, Amazon's still delivering. You'll be good. So with that, we are starting a series. This series is called Christmas with the Samaritans. If you were here last year, we did Christmas in Nevaeh. And so this year, I was like, man, I'm not a traditionalist at all. And I don't like, one reason, if I can explain this way real quick, just so you know a little bit of my heart, I have a hard time with this season in general because the stores that normally rebuke Jesus tend to play songs about him being a baby. And it drives me insane because the only reason why you're okay with that is because you want a God who is a baby that you can control and dictate. And you remove the offense out of the story. And so, like, I get bent out of shape with it. And so I try to stay like, I want us to see Jesus as the gift he is, but maybe from a different perspective. And so if you have your Bibles, we'll be in Luke chapter 17. There's 3 occasions we're going to talk about at which Jesus either dealt directly with or indirectly with the Samaritan. And we'll walk through kind of what that looks like. Do you remember the gift you didn't get? Oh, you all got all the gifts you ever wanted? All right, cool. I remember. It was a talk boy. All right, just gonna be honest. Anyone know what a talk boy is? Anyone seen Home Alone 2? All right, you all need to Google that later. I wanted that so badly when I was a kid and never got it. I don't know. Just was deprived as a child. And so I didn't get the talk boy when I wanted it. And what I've realized as being a parent with kids and giving them presents during this time of the year, I've learned that they oftentimes fail your expectations as parents. You spend all this time getting this gift that you think your child's going to love, and they love it for a moment. For a moment. And then they discard it. Or they reject it. Or if you have boys, they break it. All right? I don't know. There's a difference between boys and girls. Boys will play with that toy until it finally breaks. We're like, why you keep breaking things I buy? I'm buying you another thing, right? And you have that kind of showdown. Now, what happens is, depending on the age of your kid, they may pay more attention to the box than the toy. You're like, I'm just going to get you a box next year. And then, as they grow up, you get them something, and they're like, okay, I asked for it. I'm going to date myself for a minute. I asked for an iPod, and you gave me an MP3 player. Those are different, all right? You have that kind of interaction. You're like, we got you what we got you. You're good. And so what happens is presents eventually lose steam. We live in a world that's driven by materialism, and so you will never be able to keep up. Never be able to keep up. And what I believe has happened is that we've treated Jesus like a gift, that once we've got out of him what we've needed or wanted, we discard him until we need him again. And so this Christmas season, I just want us to pay maybe a little bit more attention to that Christmas is ultimately about humanity receiving a gift that we do not deserve. None of us. And that Jesus is unequivocally the greatest gift you will ever receive. Not a means to an end, not a ticket into heaven, not a way out of hell, but he is unequivocally the greatest gift you will ever receive, which means that in this season and to every season, he should be the gift that we discuss and propagate the most. We should never grow tired of Jesus. The gospel should never get old to you and I because we are undeserving of such a good, beautiful gift. And so as we sit down maybe this Christmas and you have kids and you watch them open up gifts, can I tell you, I think it should signify two things. Like this is what I long for in my home, and I hope it's same for you. The first thing is this, that as your parents who are imperfect and not good, love you so much to get you good gifts that you will love and enjoy. Therefore, if we, your parents, love you this much and are imperfect, how much more fulfilling and enjoyable is Jesus, who is offered as the greatest gift from the perfect and good Father. That's what we're signifying. As your daddy, as your mommy, I love you. I'm going to give you this. You enjoy it. I know you're going to discard it later and you're not going to play with it or you'll probably break it. But what I want you to know is that as I set the precedent in my home, as I love you this much to give you this gift, that the kids will start to grow up and start to see, okay, my parents loved me to do this for me. And they talk about this Father in heaven who loves me and is good. Then we start to recognize and kind of put the two together that he is good. He is my Father and he gives good gifts too. And that good gift is wrapped up in all of who Jesus is. So, as my children thank us for, they've grown out of the thankful part. Anyways, as they thank us for these gifts, I long for them to live a life continually grateful and thankful for the gift of Jesus. Like if there's anything we can impart as a church, it's allowing people to understand the gratefulness it's there because of what God has offered to us through Jesus. It's important to me that Jesus never gets old here, never gets discarded, that we don't find the next new thing, that Jesus isn't a means to an end, but that he is both the means and the end, that he is the never-ending gift from the Father that creates within us a never-ceasing praise. And we're going to see that in our text here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through Luke chapter 17. We're going to walk through a few verses, give you some observations, and then we will be done. It's that easy. You guys ready? There we go. Luke chapter 17, starting in verse 11. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus, passing along between Samaria and Galilee, and as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, Jesus, Master. Now, if you underline, highlight, it's probably a good phrase. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, go and show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of the 10, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now, he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, rise and go on your way. Your faith has made you well. Now, if Jesus is the greatest gift to humanity, and we have the opportunity to see how Jesus interacts with humanity, I think it's a brilliant way to investigate this text to see how we can pull some realities out of it that allow you and I to know that Jesus still is that gift. And for these 10 lepers, Jesus changed the trajectory of their life forever. I don't know if you know this about lepers, but they would have been outcasted from their own community. They would have been rejected, quarantined, pushed to the side, stay at a distance, a specific distance, in order to make sure that they don't make anyone else unclean. Lepers themselves would have to walk around, hide themselves, and say, unclean, unclean. Talk about a outcast from community when you have to declare to people, I am unclean, stay away. But for some way, somehow, these 10 lepers found themselves in their own little community. There were 10. We know that there's some diversity here because there's a Samaritan that Jesus tells us about later. So we don't know the ethnicity of the rest of them, but more than likely they were Jewish, and there was this one Samaritan, just giving the details of the story. But what I realize and recognize, and we see it even today, my first observation is that it's almost like dysfunction tends to attract dysfunction. You ever notice that? Get on Facebook. What happens with this particular group of people is that they don't have community. They're banned from their own city. They're outcasted from community and had to walk around reminding people that they're unclean. So it would then be natural for them to find solace together. It would be natural for them to now create community with one another because we were never meant or designed to be isolated or alone. And so because of their leprosy, they find some commonality and they operate within this community. And there's nothing wrong with that until you start to allow your dysfunction or unhealthiness to become normal. That what identifies you as this community that is a dysfunction now becomes the very thing that you proclaim and hail. Here's what I mean. I've noticed, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but people tend to go to places like Facebook or Instagram to share unhealthy things only to be validated that they're okay. That misery seems to attract more misery, that negativity seems to attract negativity. And so what happens is, this is who I am. I'm unhealthy, but I'm no longer claiming myself as unhealthy. This is just who I am. And so we go to places and we find community with other people who say, no, that dysfunction's not okay. That unhealthiness is not okay. But we want people to agree with us and accept us and say, you know what? I accept you the way that you are. And so our dysfunction starts to become normalized. But for these 10 lepers, they've gotten so used to living within this dysfunction until they saw someone who might be able to help. And instead of turning to one another, they see Jesus and they turn to him to say, okay, I recognize this is not how this is supposed to be. Can you rectify this, Jesus? They cry out to him. I don't know if you saw it. Jesus, Master. They recognize his station. They don't recognize that he is the Messiah. They recognize that he's above them, but they don't in the moment recognize that he is the Messiah. And so for them, they're saying, hey, can you please just have mercy on us? Which leads to my second observation. The lepers knew that they didn't deserve what they were asking Jesus to do. When they turned to Jesus, they didn't turn to him and say, we don't deserve to have leprosy. Fix us. No, they turn to Jesus and say, have pity on us, have mercy on us, saying, I don't deserve you to heal me, but I'm requesting it anyways. The leprosy that drove them into this dysfunctional community became the very thing that caused them to reach out to Jesus to change who they are and where they are. And so they cry out, have mercy. They are declaring, please do not give us what we deserve. Which is an interesting statement. We may say, Jesus, can you just give me something I'm requesting I don't deserve? But we'll rarely kind of acknowledge the fact that we're actually not deserving. Most of us think that we've earned our way in life. And that, unfortunately, we think we can earn our way to Jesus. That is impossible. The reason why this is the greatest gift ever is because we don't deserve it. And the moment there's any inkling in us that we have finally arrived somewhere or that we finally deserve what it is that God has offered us, then we stop worshiping. Because it's only when you realize I don't deserve what God has offered to me through Jesus, therefore I will praise him continually. The lepers knew they didn't deserve it. That's why they said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. What's crazy, though, is Jesus' response. Well, I don't know if you saw it. Verse 14. When he saw them, he said to them, go and show yourselves to the priests. Jesus, that might be a little insensitive. Not sure if you know exactly healing 101, but it's probably not the way to do that. And why I have a little bit of an issue with it is because there is a moment in the Gospels where Jesus came across a leper, and it says that he was moved with compassion, and he touched him. Touched the leper in order to heal the leper, which in touching the leper to heal the leper would have made him unclean, except for Jesus can't not be clean. He's always clean. So he could touch this guy's mess and stay clean, which is beautiful. Either way, in this instance, there's 10 of them, and instead of touching them with compassion, he says, hey, just turn around, go to the priests, show him that you are clean. Now, before they turned around, there was nothing that indicated that Jesus was actually going to make them clean. He just said, just turn around and go show yourselves to the priest. I mean, I don't know about you. I probably would have had a debate there with Jesus. Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I'm still full of leprosy. So if I turn around and go to the priest, I'm going to show them I'm still full of leprosy. So how about you go ahead and cleanse me first, and then I'll go. Like, we want Jesus to line up every detail with our plan and our doing before we do what he's asked us to do. So as long as everything aligns right, then okay, I will obey. Jesus is asking them to obey him before he heals them. That's interesting. But I'm jumping ahead. I can't go there yet. This is important because during that time, if a person is healed from leprosy, they must walk through the purification process and the laws to be declared clean by the priest. Well, you can read it later if you want to, Leviticus 14:15. It's good reading. It's Leviticus. Go read it. It'll show you some of the processes they would have to go through. But when Jesus told them, go to the priest, he's actually telling them this is what needs to happen. You can be healed of leprosy, but after you're healed of leprosy, you must be declared clean by the priest. You walk through the rituals, what's needed to be done, the sacrifices that are needed to be offered. In some cases, the ashes and water mixed together that allows you to cleanse yourself. Either way, Jesus is telling them, okay, even if I heal you, what you need to do is go be declared, because healing them and not allowing them back in community is not wholeness. And so he wanted them to also become whole and to reconnect with their family and community. And in order for that to happen, they had to have been declared clean by the priest. So they turned around and began walking. Started walking towards the temple, and somewhere along the way, they were cleansed of leprosy. I wonder how long it took. If I was Jesus, I would have played with them for a little bit. Probably why I'm not Jesus. They turn around, they start walking. About halfway maybe, I don't know. Depends, some of them maybe a little longer. Just enjoying the moment. We don't know, the details aren't there to let you and I know how long it took until they were finally cleansed. But what we do know is that they listened to the voice of Jesus, and that ushered in the healing. It's interesting that so many times we wonder why we're in the situations that we're in, while we are also neglecting what it is Jesus is trying to tell us. It's almost like we want this when Jesus says, yes, but I've revealed this, and you're not doing it. Like, let me just give you some examples. We want so many things like healings and financial freedom and new promotion or whatever it is, like these gifts that we want given to us, like we want that, so we ask for them, while at the same time harboring bitterness, while at the same time withholding forgiveness, while at the same time not doing what it is that Jesus has clearly laid out. While we don't lay down this anger that controls us, but we're asking God to bless our family. Like there's so many, and listen, hear me out when I say this. The problem is, Christianity is not just do better, try harder. Every one of us in this room need to fall at the feet of Jesus and ask him to work on us, because each one of us needs worked on and we can't do it ourselves. But I think what we do need to acknowledge is, okay, this is what you are asking. These are what your words have said. This is the obedience that you're requiring. And even though I fall short of this obedience, I at least recognize it. And so I'm asking you and your Spirit to help me get me to where I need to be. And so what needs to happen is that we need to spend a lot more time looking at the revealed promises of Christ as we beg him and implore him to move in the supernatural. We need both. And for these lepers, they turned around and started to walk towards the temple. And as they were walking towards the temple, they were cleansed. It doesn't say if the other 9 made it to the priest. So this is just some conjecture, but give me some space for a moment. 1 returned, which we'll talk about in a moment. Just 1. But the other 9, there's probably some type A personalities, rule followers in the mix, that probably went to the priest. I wonder, though, if after they got what they really wanted, which was healing, they decided to go their own way, to go back to the life they once had. Thank you, Jesus. Priest, I don't need you. Got what I got what I need. I'm out. I also wonder, which we'll get to, if the other 9, after they were cleansed and the common denominator that made them a community was now gone, if they then saw the Samaritan and walked away from him. Maybe that's why we have some of these details. I don't know. All I know is that human nature hasn't changed in thousands of years. And even today, we all have the proclivity of wanting the gifts, but not the gift giver. We all have the longing, the ache in our heart for God to align things the way we want them aligned. And when that happens, we say, thank you, good to go, on my way, until we mess it up again and we ask him to right the ship yet again. So for these 10, 9 of them continue in a direction, maybe towards the temple, maybe not. We only know the direction of the 1. 1 out of 10 turned back, praising with a loud voice. Finding Jesus and falling at his feet. 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10 got it. 1 out of 10 was instantaneously overwhelmed with gratitude. And instead of going to the priest as customary and required by purification laws, he broke tradition and went back to Jesus. He didn't make it to the priest. He didn't, let me make sure I get this done, all right, done, and then go back. He immediately, when recognized that he was healed, was filled with gratitude, turned around and said, I'm going to go back to the one who healed me. And he broke tradition to go back to Jesus. 1 of the 10 understood that the healing was an act of mercy, but the gift was Jesus. Why go back? If the gift was the healing, why go back to Jesus? What he understood is that healing was an act of God's grace and mercy, but the true gift, the one who mattered, was Jesus. And so he ran back to him. How sad is it that even in church circles today, we don't treat Jesus as the gift? None of us ran in here excited to see what his words would reveal about him this morning. Maybe 2 of you. Don't raise your hands. We come here because we're like, all right, this is what we do. Just follow this rigmarole some more. No. We've lost excitement because we've moved on from Jesus being a gift to only a gift giver. And the problem is, if you're receiving the gifts you want, you're happy. If you're not, you're bitter. And you wonder why people are so bitter at God right now, because they haven't realized that Jesus is the gift. 1 out of 10 did. This Samaritan understood that healing was an act of mercy, but the gift was Jesus. The other 9 used Jesus to springboard them back into their communities. They used Jesus to get out of a dire situation and then back to their priorities. As a child discards a gift after losing its appeal, so they discarded Jesus once he did what they needed. And unfortunately, I don't know if this ratio has changed. But sadly speaking, I think maybe it's still 1 out of 10. A group in here this morning will leave, go back to the things that beg for our attention, and forget about the appeal that Jesus is the greatest gift. Our work is more important. Our fun is more important. Our leisure is more important. Our children are more important. We start to reprioritize our life. And I'm here to tell you that it's unfortunate because I still think it's 1 out of 10. Let it be more. This Christmas, maybe.